I actually got to talking with a couple atheists online, and I have some questions for the atheists out there, and also some challenges toward the end of this video that I'm going to throw out for evolutionists.
Questions, you say, for atheists. Okay, Sparky, hit me. Let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers, BionicDance here. When I first started on YouTube, while dinosaurs still ruled the Earth, one thing that was very common were questions for atheists videos. I miss those. Of course, they weren't real questions. The ones asking them, usually Christians, didn't really want to know anything. They were gotcha questions, or what they thought were gotcha questions, designed as attempts to refute atheism, or at least to make it look ridiculous. This guy isn't much different, and he even says that these are rhetorical questions designed to make us think, so he probably doesn't care what the answers are. But I'm gonna answer them anyway. Like I said, I miss Questions for Atheists videos.
I really wanted to address some questions to atheists, because, I stumbled upon a couple YouTube channel names. One was Lucifer Almighty. One was this guy, Snake Was Right. And AronRa.
The only one of those I've ever heard of is AronRa. He's been around for at least as long as I have. But you should have stumbled across my channel, and I find I'm quite put out that you haven't. BionicDance don't get no love.
And so my question to you guys is, including AronRa, is why are you guys so focused on Christianity?
I would think it'd be obvious. It's 'cause you guys are most of what we see. We live in the English-speaking first world, where Christianity has dominated for at least centuries, if not millennia. You guys are the ones who actually affect our lives. That's why. That should have been a well-duh answer to a question that doesn't even need to be asked. But we're not just focused on Christianity. Most YouTube atheists will address other religions, too.
I saw this meme that says, "Atheists, the only people dedicated to fighting what they swear doesn't exist."
If religious people could share and play nicely with the other kids, I wouldn't care what paranormal beliefs they have. I'm not going around telling people who believe in Bigfoot, UFOs, and the Loch Ness Monster that they're full of crap. Ask yourself why not. What's different about them? Answer: they're not actively making my life worse because of their beliefs. I don't have to debunk their crapola because they're not shoving it down everybody else's throats. They're just kooks, not kooks who think that the world belongs to them and everybody else has to fall in line or else.
I truly do care for you guys, and I want you to be honest with yourselves and ask yourself this question.
And I want you to think about my answers, but I don't expect it.
If you are truly atheists, you truly do not believe God exists, then why dedicate your whole lives, your whole YouTube channel, to fighting Christianity?
And this is religious thinking that really needs to go away. YouTube is not my whole life. Atheism is not my whole life. Atheism isn't like a religion. It's not something to which I have to dedicate my life the way religions are. But I notice a tendency on the part of theists to be unable to not look at atheism through the lens of their own experience. Like I said, arguing against religion is, for me, self-defense against the misbehavior of theists. They're making nuisances of themselves and in my direction. Mind your own damn business, and I'll shut up.
And so my question is, why are you guys so worried about it? Why are you? And they're gonna say, well, we just don't want people blindly following religion.
You have to admit that's a pretty good reason.
But that's not what us Christians do. We don't blindly follow religion.
Yeah, you do. It's called faith, buddy.
Let's take a look at a quote from Richard Dawkins, right? He says, "We don't need evidence for evolution. We know it to be true."
First of all, citation needed. I can't find that quote anywhere. Second, who cares what Richard Dawkins says? He's not an atheist high priest or anything. This is just another example of that Christian thinking that needs to go away. Atheism isn't like a religion with authorities who dictate atheist dogma. I like a lot of what Dawkins says, like this.
You're watching BionicDance. Don't run on automatic, instead, please think.
But he doesn't speak for atheism or atheists. And evolution isn't part of atheism either. Dawkins may be an atheist and a proponent of evolution, but that doesn't make the two related. Atheism isn't like a religion, and evolution isn't atheist dogma. Seriously, you need to break out of this mold, look outside your bubble, and stop trying to compare atheism to a religion. Because if you don't, you'll never understand it.
Guys, the Bible talks about people falling for the lie. I'm sorry. I think it's 2 Timothy that talks about that. I'm sorry, guys. I think you have fallen for the lie. I'm not even joking.
So the book you agree with says that anything it doesn't agree with is a lie, and you don't see the problem with that, or how believing that isn't blind faith. Okay.
In Hebrews chapter 11, it says, verse 1, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen.
If you can't see it, it's not evidence. Those two concepts are completely contradictory. Of course, I don't mean see literally, as in with the naked eye. We're talking about things which you can empirically, objectively test and have peer-reviewed. That is evidence, and that's something you cannot do with religious claims about gods and miracles. And things hoped for, I can hope for a lot of things. Doesn't make them real in any way, nor do I think that they are. Again, you're describing blind faith.
That's not blind faith. Read the Bible. It tells you, go get evidence.
Well, let's suppose it does tell you to go get evidence. Guess what? It ain't there. We have no evidence that God exists. None that we can put to the test anyway. And yet, you continue to believe it, then claim it's not blind faith. And somehow you don't see the problem with that.
And then verse 3 says, it's through faith we understand that the worlds were formed by the word of God. So, that's pretty much the basis of creation science right there. It tells you to go out and get evidence, and then it says by faith or by evidence of things unseen is how we know that the worlds were formed by the word of God.
So you go looking for evidence and you don't find any because it's unseen, and that's how you end up knowing dick, not a bleeping censored thing. Both diddly and squat. If you have evidence and know something, you don't need faith. That's the whole point.
And so that's our standpoint. You can't tell me we have blind faith when your standpoint is Richard Dawkins saying we don't need evidence for evolution. We know it to be true.
Which is not my standpoint. That's the standpoint of Richard Dawkins. Again, he doesn't speak for all atheists. He's not an atheist pope, and you need to stop thinking of him that way. If he says something stupid, others are going to call him out on it. Not saying he did, I'm just saying I would. Because most atheists are also skeptical, rational thinkers who don't accept things just because people say them, no matter who they are.
And another question I have for atheists, a lot of atheists say that the Bible or Christianity was created to control people, etc. Hang on, I have it written down here, my exact question. If the Bible is a control tool, why is it not propagated by mass media?
It has been, actually. And hell, watch Fox News. You'll see them getting all religious on people. But the reason? Money. Mass media has advertising dollars to think of, and they can't go alienating huge swaths of the country if they want that revenue. Advocating just for Christianity is gonna do that. And, funny thing, the Bible was created as a control tool long before mass media existed. The first television sets came out in 1927, and radio was invented in 1895. And I'm reliably informed that the Bible existed just a smidge before then.
In fact, Christianity is ridiculed in media at all hours of the day. Every channel on the TV, they're making fun of who? Jesus Christ.
Examples?
That when you stub your toe, what do you say? Oh, Jesus Christ! Why are you doing that?
Why do we say Gesundheit when someone sneezes when we don't speak German? It's because it's been long ingrained in the culture, that's why. I don't know how it began, but a reliable guess is that it was some sort of Jesus heal my wounds thing. Of course, some of us will just shout fuck or shit without referencing religion in any way. Just saying.
And another half to that question is, why is Christianity always one of the first things to be banned by oppressive government?
Well, if religion is a way to control people, and a government wants all that control for itself instead, well, you do the math.
Anyways, I'm trying not to go on and on and on and make this video longer than it needs to be.
Too late.
But, so I hope I presented some solid questions for you atheists to ask yourself. And if you want to give me your feedback, feel free, leave a comment.
When I leave video responses like this one, rarely do I get any kind of response to it whatsoever, which is why I suspect that what I say will be like the rather disappointing battle between the hindquarters of a duck and a small quantity of moisture. So I issue a direct challenge to this fellow. Make a video response to my response and let's get a dialogue going.
But really, I'm hoping to compel you guys to look into this, internally.
You should know that we have. You're not saying anything particularly new to us. I mean, if we're outspoken atheists at all, do you really think we reach that state in a vacuum without considering these questions and others just like them? Because that's just silly.
And then I have a couple challenges for evolutionists, okay? Because I'm sick of talking about macroevolution that's been proven false time and time again.
No, it hasn't. But here's the thing. I'm not a biologist, so I can't answer a lot of this in anything more than a really general fashion. I know enough to know what I don't know, and enough to see that the evidence for speciation is overwhelming. Instead, I'd like to address how you're even thinking about this subject in the first place. Your paradigm of thought, your approach.
Abiogenesis. I want to hear a legitimate explanation for how this even could have happened. Not, you don't even have to prove it. I want a legitimate hypothesis on how this could have happened. Because I've never, ever heard a reasonable explanation.
And that's the problem here. Reasonable by what standard? I suspect that what you'd consider reasonable and what someone considering this topic from a purely secular perspective would call reasonable are not the same thing. I suspect that you could be given the most reasonable explanation ever, perhaps even complete with proof based on solid data, and you'd reject it because you don't much care for it on religious grounds. Also, well, there's this. We've kind of demonstrated abiogenesis in the laboratory. So, just saying.
Because I've never, ever heard a reasonable explanation other than basically magic. And that's obviously ridiculous.
A Christian saying that magic is ridiculous is like a Star Trek fan claiming that televisions don't exist. Also, it's only June and my annual budget for irony meters is already almost exhausted, so please donate on Patreon.
So, and then another question would be, if evolution's true, then why didn't the millions of years of eating raw meat, why didn't that give us predator teeth?
It did. They're called canines. We're also omnivores. We eat plants too, which had an effect on our teeth.
If we came from monkeys and we evolved, we're supposed to be getting better and better.
We don't get better and better. That's not what evolution does. Evolution is change, not necessarily improvement. Natural selection means that species can change in order to keep reproducing to survive, to perpetuate the species, and not all evolution is beneficial. That's why a species might go extinct instead of surviving, because they weren't fit enough to reproduce in the environment where they lived. It's survival of the fittest, not survival of the more awesome.
I want a reasonable explanation, that simply doesn't make sense either. I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me.
Maybe religion itself is the reason that you don't get it, that you're shying away from any explanations that might challenge your Christian presuppositions. Or maybe you just haven't done your homework. But either way, these explanations have a solid empirical basis and are reliable regardless of your understanding.
Hopefully, I'm praying that the Lord speaks through this video and really convicts them and makes their hearts to be softened toward the idea and really be honest with themselves instead of just kind of hiding behind atheism.
Back at you. How soft is your heart to the possibility that religion is a steaming pantload, I wonder? Can you stop hiding behind faith? Or is this a one-way street to you? Just asking. Okay, doing this part without the green screen because I kinda have no choice. You see, one of you sent me this. It's a t-shirt that's based on an episode of How I Met Your Mother. There was this weapons-grade caffeinated soft drink called Tantrum that was basically a reference to, say, Surge, Mountain Dew, Jolt, Red Bull, all of that stuff. And Ted and Marshall were huge fans of it in college.
I got 6 cans of Tantrum. Well, 4. One burned through the can, the other one I drank already. Tantrum!
Ted! Ted! Check it out. I got black coffee on the left. I got Tantrum on the right. Do you have a phone book?
Yes, I do. I don't know why they make phone books anymore. Everything's online, right?
Tantrum!
Tantrum!
I think that amuses me because, number one, I unapologetically love that show, but number two, it reminds me of back in college when everybody was a Mountain Dew freak, and so Tantrum is just nostalgia. Whoever sent that to me, and there was no note, so I don't know who to thank, also sent me 2 t-shirts dealing with PTSD. Now, I don't have PTSD. The closest I can come is being terrified of dogs after witnessing that double mauling as a toddler. But regardless, I want to thank whoever it was for perusing my Amazon wish list, sending me something I wanted, and, well, public service announcement, PTSD. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think. Those two tons of... Guess what? But either way, these explanations have a solid empirical basis and are reliable regardless. Yeah. Maybe religion itself is the reason you don't... I suspect that you could be given the most reasonable explanation ever, perhaps even complete with... That one's not my fault. Don't wait. Rate today. Operators are standing by.